This video is brought to you by Alienware, featuring NVIDIA GeForce GTX. Start gaming.
Yo, what's up guys, Jack here, and today we're taking a look at the Alienware Alpha R2. And full disclosure, as you saw in the intro, this is a sponsored video and unfortunately I don't get to keep any of this stuff. Links are in the description if you want to go check them out for yourself. So then, you might recognize this if you watch my videos regularly. Back in November of last year, Alienware sent me their first Steam box and I wasn't too impressed. I thought it was underpowered, I couldn't get to grips with the Steam controller, and also it came with Steam OS installed as the operating system, and that's a Linux based system, which means that you could only play Linux supported games that were on Steam. Not ideal. Skip to July 2016 and now we've got the Alienware Alpha R2, which, although the case looks the same, this isn't actually a Steam box. This is a PC with Windows 10 installed on it. Nothing to do with Steam at all, and this is Alienware's own product. So what do we have inside here in terms of specs? Well, it's actually pretty beefy considering how small it is, banana for scale, and the performance really surprised me. I'll show you some gaming numbers in a second. Techie stuff first. The CPU in here is a Skylake i7 6700T clocked at 2.8 GHz. That's a quad-core CPU with hyperthreading, so 8 threads in total. 8 GB of DDR4 memory clocked at 2133 MHz, a 250 gig solid state drive, and most importantly, the graphics card in here is a desktop class GTX 960 with 4 GB of GDDR5 memory. This is not the mobile version of that card. They've actually squeezed in a desktop GTX 960 in there, and as I said before, it comes pre-installed with Windows 10 64-bit. You can also upgrade it to, if you like. The memory and CPU are upgradable if you feel the need to do that. I wouldn't bother though, but you can if you want to. There's also an M2 PCI slot, so if you want an extra super fast hard drive, you can put one in there too. In terms of ports, we've got 2 USB 3 ports on the front, 2 on the back, power, optical audio, HDMI out, HDMI in if you want to do a pass-through, Ethernet port for wired LAN. It's also got built-in Wi-Fi, and also this weird looking thing which is for the graphics amplifier, and we'll get onto what that is later. Okay then, gaming performance. This is what you want to see. I was really interested to see how this performs because of that desktop 960 in there. Let's take a look, and what better game to try first than the BF1 closed alpha. It's probably the nicest looking multiplayer game out on the PC at the moment, and I recorded all of this stuff with an Elgato directly from the HDMI source, so no shadow play or DX story affecting performance. These are the actual performance numbers from the system. We're playing at 1080p, motion blur off, I don't like it, depth of field on, DX12 on, everything else on ultra with post anti-aliasing turned on. Also note that the resolution scale says 42% and that's actually 100%, but for some reason it's bugged in the BF1 alpha, but that is the default, so this is true 1080p that we're playing at here. So this is a 64 player server that's full. On ultra graphics, frame rate is in the top left hand corner. I'm using Fraps to display the frame rate, and we're getting, I'd say, around 60 FPS average. Sometimes it pings up to the 70s, and the lowest I saw it go in the gameplay was around 47. And that is just crazy to me, that a box that small can put out this sort of performance. Obviously, if you want to drop the settings and play on low or medium or high, you're going to get more FPS, but the game looks so pretty, I think it really would be a shame. The FPS you're getting here is more than playable. 1440p or 4K resolution, nah, don't bother with that, it's not going to cut it. 1080p is a sweet spot for this system, and as you can see, it handles it very nicely, so props to Alienware for that. I don't know how they've got a desktop GPU in there and made it work. As you saw, there's a bigger blower style cooler in there that keeps it cool, and in terms of temperatures, you're going to be looking at 50°C idle and 80°C when gaming, and I guess that this is also a testament to DICE as well as to just how well optimized their game engine is. It's pretty impressive. Let's take a look at another game, CSGO, very popular for PC players. Again, 1080p, and I'm using the automatic high settings here, so we've got a mix of high, very high, and 8 times MS anti-aliasing. The game looks good like this. So onto a deathmatch server on Dust 2 that's full of players. Pay attention to the frame rate in the top left again. Most of the time there we're getting around 200 plus FPS, so more than playable, very smooth, no hiccups or anything like that. Now go play 200 hours of deathmatch and you'll be just as good as Scream, and his one taps guaranteed works 99% of the time. How about some Doom? Love this game, wonderfully optimized on PC too. I actually played it for an hour whilst recording this because it's just so damn addictive. 1080p again, and on the overall quality ultra preset. How's it going to do? Let's take a look. I'd say we're averaging around 70 FPS here, the minimum around 60. It looks absolutely gorgeous, this game, and I definitely recommend picking it up if you haven't already. The single player is fantastic. Just really nice to go back to that old school type of game where it's just you, your guns, and a room full of monsters, and the Alienware Alpha handles it beautifully. And finally, I don't want to bore you with a massive list of games or benchmarks, but let's take a look at Battlefront, another DICE game, Frostbite engine. You know how good it looks. But how does it run on this system? Pretty well. All on Ultra, 1080p, medium FXAA, motion blur turned off. Check it out. It's a very similar story to BF1 actually, although it runs at slightly lower FPS most of the time. We're hovering around 50 to 60 FPS, which is great. Overall, I'm super impressed with the performance of this thing. Way better than the previous Steam OS version. Completely knocks it out of the park and actually makes it a good product. I didn't believe the numbers I was seeing at first, so I actually redid some of the gameplay tests, and thankfully I got the same results. What about that graphics amplifier thing then? Well, Alienware sent me this weird looking box with it too. What's it for? Well, you can actually put a desktop GPU in there and connect it to the Alpha if you want more performance. So you open it up, and in this case it came with a GTX 980, and then you hook that up to a monitor and you plug it into the Alpha using the special cable that comes with it, and you'll get something near to the GPU performance of a desktop GTX 980 from the Alpha. Here I'm back on BF1 running at the same settings as before, 1080p, and we're getting around 30 more frames per second. It's not quite the full performance of the desktop GPU, I think. I'd imagine that a stock 980 in a normal PC gets more FPS than this, but it's pretty close. So there is some upgrade potential there. The thing is, this is obviously an additional cost too, and I think it kind of defeats the purpose of having a PC that small, because now you've got another big box that you've got to plug in nearby, and it'll be a bit noisier too. But they sent that through as well, so I thought I'd include it in the video. It's an interesting technology, certainly, but I personally wouldn't have one of those, and I think it's counterintuitive to the idea of the Alpha in the first place. Overall, I think that the new Alpha is a great product. If you're looking for a small form factor, powerful PC, this will do that for you. You can play any game on it. You can play Origin games, Steam games, Battle.net. It's a PC. You can also plug in a controller, a mouse and keyboard. It can act as a living room console, a bedroom console, take it to LAN with you, whatever. You're getting a desktop GPU and CPU performance in a box that's about the same size of a Nintendo Wii. And obviously, if you compare the graphics quality and frame rates to an Xbox One or PS4, you're blowing them out of the water. Performance wise, this is fantastic. In the UK, a system similar to the one I looked at here with a bigger hard drive will set you back around £779, and in the US around $950. Obviously, it goes without saying that you could definitely build a mini ITX PC for the same price and get better performance. There's no doubting that, but what you're paying for here is the compact size and not having to build it yourself. It's a bespoke product. So there's a bit of a trade-off there, and I think it really depends on your technical ability and if you've got time to build a system and if you actually want or need a PC really small. It's not perfect though. There are definitely some improvements I would make if I were in charge at Alienware. I'll get to those in a second. But what this system shows to me is potential and what's to come in the future and what will be possible in, say, 6 months or a year's time. With Nvidia's Pascal GPUs and AMD's Polaris architecture, we're getting to a point now where desktop class GPUs are that power efficient and cool that they can actually fit in laptops and small PC systems like this, which is really awesome in my opinion. The CPUs are already there. You've got an i7 quad core that runs at 2.8 GHz. It's fast enough for any modern game. It's not going to bottleneck you. The GPUs have just caught up though. So then, improvements I'd make to the Alpha. First thing, in 6 months time, let's say, if it were possible, I'd stick a GTX 1070 or 1080 in there. It's been reported that versions of these chips will be released in August or September for laptops, but the key thing is that they'll be the same chips used in desktops, just operating at a lower TDP and lower clock speeds and memory bandwidth. But still, that's going to be insane performance for a small mobile GPU. So we're looking at okay performance at 4K, good performance at 1440p, and excellent performance at 1080p. Mad frame rates, pretty exciting times. Next, I'd add a DisplayPort out as well. Why? Well, that way you could actually hook this up to a 144Hz monitor. It makes a massive difference over 60Hz. Most HDMI ports will only do 60Hz. DisplayPort, however, goes all the way up to 180Hz at the moment, so super smooth competitive gameplay on those kind of monitors, and that's great for a game like CSGO and Battlefield. And finally, if they could fit it into the alpha, maybe it would need to be a little bit bigger. I'd love to see a bespoke liquid cooled system in there instead of the fans they've got at the moment, because it can get loud when you're gaming for prolonged periods of time. Also, the cost, I do think it could be a little bit cheaper than it currently is, and it would be a super competitive product. And that's about all I changed, to be honest. PCs are getting smaller and smaller, more accessible, more powerful. This is really cool, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. If this system had a DisplayPort out on it, I'd 100% use it as a LAN PC for CSGO, because the FPS is great. I just want to add one more thing because it's worth saying, and because of the CPU and GPU power that we've got in this system, you could also quite easily use it as a work machine for editing and rendering videos, or 3D work, or as a media center. All that stuff is viable too. And that's all for today, folks. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. Videos like this take a long time to put together. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.